Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are moving to an advanced level of Terraform training. In our last session, we covered the basis of Terraform, installation, CLI introduction, and finally we wrote our first Terraform code to launch an EC2 instance. As I mentioned, our Terraform training is more focused on the provider AWS. So we are focusing only on the launching infrastructure in AWS using the Terraform code. Today, I am going to train you on Terraform states, how to store states, best practices. However, during this class, I am also covering how to separate the configuration files from the main Terraform file. In our next class, we will be moving to the reusable modules that will give you an idea how to write reusable codes that can be used for multiple environments or multiple projects. So let us start understanding what is a state in Terraform. So state is a file which store all the information, all the state information of your managed infrastructure and its configuration in a file. So the state file which include the all the real world resource mapping of your infrastructure. When I am saying the resource mapping means it include all the information of your list of resources which you are launching in your infrastructure using the Terraform code. So this include what is the VPC ID or which account you are launching, what are the different resources, what are its IDs or ARN, all those information which are stored in a file in a YAML format. It is called state file. Yeah, in this screen you could be able to see a sample the YAML file, that is state file which I created for one of the infrastructure. So here you could be able to see the version, Terraform version what I used to launch this infrastructure, and the the output which I'm printing out as part of the state file output, and so all this information will be stored as part of the state file. So that we will come and cover in the later part of the session. Now let us go and understand why we need to have state in Terraform. Just think like you are managing a large infrastructure using a Terraform and you are planning to do a change in the infrastructure. If you are not managing the state file, so when you are trying to make a change in infrastructure using Terraform, it will go and it will compare the entire infrastructure to understand what changes this piece of code is going to make a change. So that might take long execution. So if you are having a state file, it will just check only the module which you are going to make a change, and that will reduce the the execution or scanning of your infrastructure to understand what exactly I'm going to make the change in the infrastructure. The second thing, suppose if you want to have some kind of dependency which you need to take it from the previous execution or from the existing infrastructure. For example, if you want to launch an EC2 instance and if you want to fetch the VPC ID from the state file or from the existing infrastructure, so what you can do, you can just use the values from the state file. So that is one of the main advantage which the Terraform will provide you. There are multiple ways to store the Terraform state files, but here we are covering only two out of that. One is local storage, and the second one is S3 and DynamoDB. Since we are more focusing on the AWS, I would like to limit the remote storage of the state file using S3 and locking using the DynamoDB. So I will explain all these scenarios once we are going forward. So in Terraform, we usually describe the state file information using a backend property. So in backend property, we describe two sections. One is for configuration to store the state file, and the second part, the reference, which is used to fetch the data from a specific state file. So let us do an example for local state. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to launch an EC2 instance and launch an EIP and storing all the information in the local states. So when we are launching an EC2 instance, that information will store to the local state, and when we are launching an EIP, it will fetch the instance detail from the local state and assign that to that particular EC2 machine. In our last class, if you remember, we created a single file for creating an EC2 machine. So in this example, I'm going to separate it out. So if you look at this file, this is a file which we used in the previous session, which we created provider information and resource information and all the variables which has written in a single file. So in this training, I made a change in the folder structure. If you look at here, so I created a module, and under the module, I created multiple folder. So a folder for EC2, a folder for EIP, and under each folder, I created multiple files that do multiple things. So let's go through the file. So if you click on the provider.tf, it is having the provider information. And similarly, if you click on the backend, so even before clicking on the backend, let us go through the configuration file that we had discussed before. Here in the backend section, I configured like it is a local. That means this file need to be saved to my local machine. Okay, and I'm giving the path where exactly it should located it. So let's see and go back to our backend.tf file. So here you can see the backend I configured like local and I given a path. So that in that path I created a folder called states in the below, and under the states it will go and it will save, it will create a folder like EC2 and it will save the state file over there. So let us see other files. If you click on ec2.tf, here you're having the you're having the information what you need to launch an EC2 machine. So the bottom part you can just ignore. I'm not going to do anything right here right away. So if you look at this file, so I made a change. So if you look at AMI, I configured like it should take it from where.ami and instance type where.instance type. That means I'm going to declare the variable and it has to fetch the values from the variables. So let's see how we are fetching the value from the variable file. Click on the variable.tf. Here you could be able to see all the variables what I am declaring the values. So here if you go, you will be able to see the value for AMI. You will be able to see the values for the instance type. Even you can declare the type of the variable, whether it is a string, whether it is a list or what. All those information you could be able to give it over there. The next file what I have in my folder is output.tf. So in this file what I'm doing, I'm going to write some output to my state file or even in the console. Once I apply my changes, these two different value which going to print in my console. So two things what I'm printing is, one is AWS instance EC2 ID and ARN of the machine. Now we are good to run the Terraform init, which will download the plugins, and also you can see that the configuration for the backend is local and is trying to download the provider plugin. Now the plugin is downloaded. Now we can go and do the Terraform apply. When we are doing Terraform apply, you could be able to see the changes in that state folder. Now it started creating a log file and it created a state file as well. So once the Terraform plan is finished, these two files will get disappear from the state folder. Now the Terraform plan got executed and it's saying that the plan is to add one more resources. If you scroll little bit up, you could be able to see the information which resource it is going to add. So I'm just scrolling it up and you could be able to see that it is saying that it is going to add AWS instance is in the EC2 module. So now let us go back to the state folder and see what is happening there. So now the the log file and the state file which is got disappeared after the Terraform apply. So we are supposed to see this one, but what happened? So it created an EC2 folder and it created a file there and it got deleted after the you know plan execution. So now we are going to apply our Terraform changes in the infrastructure and see what is happening there. So when I started applying my Terraform changes, again if I go back to the state folder, I could be able to see the Terraform state and the logs which are again reappeared. So it is prompting to make these changes. I just pressed yes and it is going to make the changes in my infrastructure. Now we could be able to see that AWS instance EC2 module which is going to create an EC2 machine there. This might take one minute or so. Now the Terraform applied its changes in the infrastructure and it created an EC2 machine, and I could be able to see the output in the screen that it created the it outputted the AWS EC2 ID and ARN which I was asking to output. Now again, if I go back to the EC2 EC2 state folder, I could be able to see the states of the state file of the Terraform, which is having all the information which the resources which are there in the infrastructure. So if you scroll, you could be able to see that resources under the resources section, all the information which include the EC2 machine which we launched, the output we printed, and we all the VPC ID, the private IP, DNS, all those information will be stored in the state file. Let me notice that when we executed the Terraform plan and the Terraform apply, there was a log file which is got created and which was disappeared after the execution, right? So the intention of the log file is to make sure that no one else or any other person is not making any changes in the infrastructure. That's why it will lock the Terraform state and it won't allow anyone else to make the changes until we execute our operation. So now let us go to the second session of creating an elastic IP and assigning to the EC2 machine. So here I made a change in the folder structure again. So I combined the backend and the provider file to a single file called config.tf, which I included the provider information, the state file which it need to be stored, that is a configuration part, and the remote state information from where the remote state data should be fetched from. So here you could, if you look at, so in both place the backend I configured like it should be local. That means it will fetch the value from local and also it will save the data to the local file. Now I'm going to initialize the Terraform using the Terraform init command. Then we'll do the Terraform plan and then the Terraform apply. So this will go and create an elastic IP and assign it to the EC2 instance which is already launched in our infrastructure. So now I'm applying my Terraform changes and let's see what it is going to do there. So now again, if you go, you will be able to see the state folder created one more folder called EIP and the state files are written under that, and you can see the Terraform log state also. So if you see here, you could be able to see that it's saying that the apply is complete and it added one more resources in the infrastructure. Let us go to the AWS console and see whether it is got created. Yeah, so if I refresh, I could be able to see the new elastic IP got launched. And if I go back to the instance, and I could be able to see the instance got assigned with the elastic IP there. There are some limitation with the local storage. So suppose if you are keeping your state file in local and if you are working in a team, then it will be challenging. The second thing, and if you are keeping your log file in locally and suppose if your teammate is running a state change, then you won't get the update. So and again, that can also lead to a clash. And when you are keeping this locally, you need to have a proper backup strategy to safeguard your state file. And also you have to ensure that you are not committing this to the Git as it might contain the sensitive informations. Now let us go back to the second option, the remote storage of the state file. This will be very optimal for when you are working in a team. So you are going to store your state file in S3 bucket and you are going to keep DynamoDB as your locking mechanism. So DynamoDB table you will create and you will keep your lock information there. And when you are executing someone else, it will say that way you are in already in use. Let's see the scenario, the same example. We are going to create an EC2 machine along with elastic IP, and let's see how it works. Therefore, we need to create an S3 bucket for this one, and we had to provide the proper IAM policy which user can have the enough permission to access the S3 bucket. Then you have to go and create the DynamoDB, and then you need to have the policy for the DynamoDB as well. You can give any name for the DynamoDB table, but make sure that you are giving lock ID as primary key for that table. So the only difference what we are going to make from the previous the backend.configuration is that here we are going to give backend as S3 and we will give the bucket name and DynamoDB table name. And you have to choose the region name properly where exactly you are creating your DynamoDB table and S3 bucket. Let's go to my configuration file and see the configuration for the states. So here backend I have configured like it's S3 and I given the bucket name as CloudOps Guru Terraform, and the key I specified key is the state file name where exactly it should go and save. Now let me try to apply my changes from the S3 module and see what is happening now. So I'm initializing the Terraform now. Now let us go to our DynamoDB table and see how the logs works here. Now you could be able to see the logs which is being created in the DynamoDB table, and I'm going to apply my changes. Now after this execution, this will create a file in the S3 bucket as well. So I'm just waiting to see the update. It's going to launch the EC2 machine. Now I can see it's in pending state, and the Terraform is still trying to apply its changes. It's waiting for the response back from the EC2 machine once it is up and running. Now the Terraform execution got finished, and if you go back and see the S3 bucket, you could be able to see the a new module is got added under the bucket, and it is having the Terraform state file. If you try to open it, you could be able to see all the information what it got outputted from the execution. So it will have the output which we created as well as the resource information. If you go back to the DynamoDB, there you could be able to see a entry in the DynamoDB table with a digest. Now I'm going back to the Elastic IP module, and I need to make the changes corresponding to the to take it the backend from the S3 buckets. So let me copy the original one from the other module and paste it over here. So my configuration for the EIP, the output should go to the EIP folder, and the input for this execution should be from the EC2 EC2 module. So I'm going to change it. So the output should go to EIP and the input should come from the in, input should be from the S3, and I'm going to change the config part. So that should come from the bucket, and this is the information. And let me put it here, and let me change the path of this one from EC2 instead of EIP, because it will take the data from existing data from the EC2 state file, and it will make the apply the changes in the EIP module. Let's see how it works. Now I'm applying my changes to the Terraform, and let's see what's happening in the backend. So it's executing, it's saying that it's creating an EIP, and it will give a response very soon. It won't take much time because the launching an EAP is not a big deal. Yeah, it got executed. If you go back to the log, and you could be able to see the two digests, one for the EIP and one for the EC2 machine. Suppose if you are making any changes, and if you made any changes in your state file and try to apply it, it will check the digest, and then based on that it will execute. I just executed Terraform destroy and see what happened to your state file. If you go back and if you try to load your state file, you could be able to see that the information on the state file got changed. So now you don't have any resource in AWS instance, that way it's showing that it is empty and output is also empty. Yeah, that's all for the entire thing about the state file. Now let's see some of the best practices what you are supposed to do. So the best practices include: you are not supposed to commit any state file into your Git repository, configure a backend rather than keep it locally, A backup strategy should be there. If you're using S3 bucket, keep a versioning there and use the cross-region replication if it is needed. So that's all for the today's session. So we can catch you on next session. In the next class, we are going to go through the building reusable module that is very much needed to work on different environment, different project, how we can reuse the same module without writing too much code. So let's catch you on next class. Bye for now.